So welcome everyone. Sorry if you were listening and are confusion as we get going, but this is our first time co-presenting through this platform. And so just a few technical glitches, we apologize for that. So welcome to this event. We are offering a little bit of a session here about simple ways to reduce stress and how men can find greater balance with ease. And this is something that we feel is a situation, a problem that many men find in their midlife. And so we'll get into that in a moment. Just to let you know, if you're not familiar with me, I'm Loren Crawford, and mental fitness coach and purpose coach for largely for men in midlife who are having some of these challenges with issues around the transition through midlife. And so this live is going to give you some tools to work with. And I want to introduce my co-presenter here, Cathy. And Cathy Eads is from Bliss Yoga, and she has expertise as a therapeutic yoga expert and can provide us with some additional tools, resources, and some reflections. And so what we'll do as we move forward here is there's going to be three components to our presentation. It should take about 20-25 minutes. And then we're going to get into a practicum, a small session at the end where you can actually do a little bit of this stuff that we're talking about and engage, and Cathy will lead you through that. So why don't we dive right in, Cathy? You ready to go?
Ready to go.
Great. So I'm really happy to have you here with me today. So thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here with you. And I think we're going to cover some really important topics.
Exactly. Me too. So let's start with a big, broad question. So why do you think so many men find it easy to sort of stay in their heads and get kind of stuck in that mental processing and tune out from their bodies? Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it comes from the fact that culturally we really are kind of focused on the outward performance, the productivity, all of these things that are a little more outward focused that require us, though, to have a lot of mental activity going on. And we tend to be a very a society that focuses on production and performance and doing it as close to perfect as possible. And that puts a lot of strain and stress on us mentally, emotionally, physically too. And what often happens is you're going and you just kind of get stuck in this rut of, I need to be doing, I need to be thinking of the next thing, I need to be planning ahead. And it becomes habitual. And then the rest and relaxation that's just necessary for being a human being kind of falls to the wayside. And we kind of forget that's really necessary too.
So getting stuck in the thinking, processing, and forgetting about the bigger project.
You know, if we're honest, like those are the things that are outwardly rewarded and encouraged. Nobody's going to necessarily, or few people are going to encourage you to take the break that you need, right, or encourage you to do the wellness routines. That's going to need to come from you.
Yeah. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
to help plant that seed. Yeah. So tell me, what are some subtle signs where men are kind of living in a disconnected thing, like the head and the body in two different realities? What might that look like?
I think one of the things that I see most commonly is that a client will have a really hard time with relaxation or being alone with their thoughts without an agenda and a task, to-do list. That may also affect their ability to get a good night's sleep. So there's so much activity that bringing that all back down, it becomes a real challenge. And it can be really uncomfortable to not be in go mode, kind of unsettling almost.
Right. Yeah. And that becomes a pattern, like you said, that we get into this sort of way of being and it just becomes like autopilot, right? Yeah. So then what happens physiologically and emotionally when men aren't addressing this disconnect, especially in midlife, because that's kind of our audience today?
Yeah. I think We get to midlife, and I'm there also. I'm in my mid-50s. So I find that the body keeps the score. We begin to have some physical manifestation of symptoms, aches, pains that aren't necessarily naturally just part of aging, but there's so much weight and so much burden that we've been kind of carrying for a while. The body starts to say, hey, if you don't pay attention, I'm going to make you pay attention to me. And it's also a very, I guess, profound example of this is the person who runs, 5 miles 3 times a week, and they eat really healthy, and you hear they've had a major heart attack. It's like the body eventually says, like, no more, I can't do this anymore. It's not sustainable.
100%. And what I notice with clients as well is they may think that all this pushing, thinking, doing is helping them in their performance or productivity, but it actually is impeding performance. It actually is impeding relationships. It obviously is impeding their overall well-being, right?
Yeah, for sure.
As well. So how can practices like yoga, so you're a yoga expert, as am I, and how can those practices and the breath work that comes along with yoga, people think yoga is all this fancy physical poses stuff, but it's much bigger, right? How
Yeah.
can that help with this reconnection?
I'm so glad that you brought up the fact that the idea that some people have of yoga is often a very westernized um, concept. And yoga is so much more than a physical set of movements. It's actually a healthy way of living your life. And it branches into how do you eat your meals and choose your food and interact with other people. It's just a lot more than doing the physical activity. Although that physical activity and the focus that we keep on our breath and kind of connecting it to our movements, that brings us from all this up here activity back down into our
Yeah,
body. So we're really reconnecting the movement, the breath, and the thought. And it takes us away from all that stuff outside and brings the attention inward so we can hear our inner voice that we need to reconnect with oftentimes.
yeah, that's beautiful. I often say it's not about a stretchy hamstring, it's about a way of living,
Yes,
right?
that's
Yeah,
a
and
great
we can
phrase.
get
I'm going to use that.
even teachers can get distracted with it. It's all this physical stuff. But
Yeah.
you and I have kind of reconciled all that, and we know it's much more of a
Yeah,
holistic
and I
thing.
think too, I want to just throw out there to anyone who may be like, "Oh, yoga, I just don't know." The yoga that you and I practice and share with people is a very gentle. It's not about more pushing and more trying to see how crazy you can make it. It's more about bringing
Yeah,
yourself back to your body and taking and
100%.
nurturing
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And I like to have that balance of a little bit of engagement, but then also a little bit of the quiet, right? So
Gentle strengthening is what I like to say.
Oh, I love that. Exactly. Perfect. Yes. And that's age appropriate, right?
Mhm.
Share with me, if you will, an example of where you've seen a shift in a client who's gone from maybe not so sure about approaching their life or integrating these things and then having some sort of positive outcome.
Sure, sure. So I have one client who he owns a small financial services company. It's a very successful company, but he carries the burden of just making sure employees are trained and happy, clients are having successful returns. He really kind of carries that, even though he's got a great team. He feels very responsible for that, and he also has children. So he's carrying a lot of responsibility and is a go, 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 big gym guy, big guns, all that kind of stuff. But he said, I can't enjoy my downtime. I just can't, because I can't even relax. I sit down and I feel like I need to be on the phone, calling somebody, doing something, planning something. And I was like, we can take care of this. And what he said to me after one of our sessions, probably we'd worked together for 3 weeks, he said, this is the one thing I do every week that takes me away from all of those other things. And it actually allows me to fully relax. And I really needed it. This is what I wanted.
Love
So,
that. Yeah, and a client that I had last year, an executive, he had left an executive position and was looking at next stages. And when we work together, I always introduce breath as part of my coaching, right? There's a
Mhm.
quiet time we do together at the beginning of our sessions. And I could sense his resistance initially, but after being in the program and completing this work with me, he said one of the most profound things was starting to work with his breath. And so I encouraged him to bring that into the corporate sphere,
Yeah.
because that's going to make us all better beings, right? In the end.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
breath is so subtle and also so powerful when you
So
really
powerful. Yeah.
tap into it.
I believe it all comes down to the breath in the end. Well, that's life, right? So
Yeah.
let's pivot a little bit into the next topic here, a sort of rethinking exercise. You tapped into this a little bit, but let's explore this a little bit more. So many men are still in that mindset of more is better and no pain, no gain. Um, why might this mindset be especially harmful or not helpful? Maybe it's a better way of putting it in midlife.
We are transitioning between that period of life where it is very focused on producing and caring for and raising a family, if you're doing that, and building a company or building a career. And we're shifting to looking forward to this period of our life where we're shifting away from all that production to, I need to look at, like, what is my impact? What is my legacy going to be? And how do I want to enjoy the fruits of my labors, really? So there's this bit of a shift, and sometimes it can be very unsettling. So you want to go from a way of doing. And if you bring it into your wellness routines, it just supports that transition and makes it a little bit easier. So you move from maybe going to the gym 5 times a week to maybe you do that twice a week. And then you incorporate just taking a hike or doing some yoga or going to a breathwork class. You can mix it up and introduce some things where you're more sitting back in your power. Like you've built a career, you've built this life. It is time for you to enjoy what you've worked so hard to build. It's
Yeah.
okay to
Yeah.
sit back in that power, in that achievement that you've achieved.
Yeah, and maybe shift gears a little bit and allow yourself an opportunity to get out of that pattern, because we do get into patterns, right?
Yeah.
And they say that 95% of how we live after our mid 30s is very much the programming that we've kind of
Mhm.
induced in ourselves. And it's like that daily activity of living on autopilot. So you kind of addressed how that would look. Why do you think that practices like yoga and some of the other Eastern traditions too,
Mhm.
like Tai Chi and Qigong and those kinds of things, they're often thought of as gentle? And I think you already used that word a little bit, right? Um, but how can that different approach, gentle, be more powerful than traditional workouts? Maybe just elaborate on that a little bit more.
I think part of it is that you are so focused on your inner strength. So you're using your physical body to come into strong poses. So you're using big muscles and you're holding them a little longer rather than maybe doing as many reps. So you definitely are feeling the muscle engagement, but you also are so mindful of your body. How does it feel in my right thigh in this position? So you are really connecting and coming into this awareness around not just your physical strength, but this resilience inside your spirit, as well as your mental resilience. Again, kind of going back to, like, look what you've come through to this point in your life. You have this strength, and sometimes we need to honor and recognize it.
Yeah. And I think that the great thing about going to the gym, I go to the gym, I find that really helpful, but I also have my daily yoga. The thing with going to the gym, people might think, or men might think, well, I am knowing what I'm doing. My mind is connected to me doing my reps and all of that stuff. But when we do this work, this yogic work, it's more holistic, right? It's not just I feel my bicep being contracted with that rep. With the yoga system, for example, it's much more integrated. So
Mhm.
there's that subtle body, the energy stuff, and breath. And let's maybe talk a little bit about the breath and what role does it play in transforming how we move and recover physically.
Yeah, I think it's a really integral part of the type of yoga that you and I practice, because when we are expanding our body or expanding the limbs, we inhale, we're expanding the lungs. And so then when we contract the limbs back toward the body, we're exhaling and we're expressing that exhalation. So the connection of the movement to the breath is not something we normally do. So it naturally makes us more mindful, and it allows the brain to step away from some of that other chatter and like really focus on that. Plus, every exhalation, we don't necessarily think of this. Yes, we know it's getting rid of carbon dioxide, but it is also allowing this release from, you've got the circulation moving as you're moving, you have lymph flowing, and then all of those are helping to detoxify the body. Plus, you have this exhalation that's a deeper, more cleansing exhalation. So all of these working together, it's mind, body, emotion, breath, all of it is, like you said, integrated. That's the best
Yeah.
word to use.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And I love the integrated approach to yoga. And I think the other thing about the breath too, like you said, it's kind of connected to the movement. I always say it leads the movement. As in
Mhm.
exercise, the breath is kind of catching up, right? And in yoga, we ultimately want the inhalation to be leading the movement, for example. But what happens with that, I find, is then people start to understand, oh, I can master my breath, because
Yeah,
the breath too becomes a habit, and the breath is often a reflection of what's going on in here unconsciously. But when we can bring our awareness to it, we can start to shift all of that landscape up too,
yes.
which is brilliant. Um, so, what happens if you have clients who may be skeptical or resistant to this kind of an approach? Like, no, I'm just good with continuing to go to the gym 5 times a week.
I like to meet people where they are
Yeah.
and ask them, would you be open to doing 30 minutes of working together? And tell me, what are the things that are kind of a turnoff to you about when you think about yoga? What's kind of a turnoff, or breath work, or even mindfulness or meditation? Like
Mhm.
what feels weird or icky? And
Yeah.
then what do you think might be appealing? And we start with like, well, let's go to this appealing place first and work on getting the results that you want to feel. Like, how would you want to feel? What would make this a successful thing for you? And if we're getting the results using these methods, these approaches, then isn't that what we're going for? And, just kind of, but also recognize that, like, if you think pretzel twists and headstands are what yoga is all about, I can tell
Yeah.
you 100%, we ain't going there.
Yeah. That's not it. And we're not going to be standing on our heads, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. So I think that's brilliant. And the other thing that can be really helpful there is, it's an experience, right? So if we give them the experience, that speaks for itself. Like, if it's just abstract and you're talking about it, or I can't do yoga because X, Y, or Z or Z, it when they have that experience, as you're saying, let's work for 30 minutes and just see how that feels in your body. Nothing can compare to that, right? It's so
That's right.
beautiful.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's important too that you do approach this with like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to see. Just to have an open mind, see how it works for you, because as you mentioned, there are other practices. You need to
Yep.
choose the one that's going to work best for you.
100%, 100%. We advocate, our approach to
Yeah,
yoga, but there's other systems.
absolutely.
So let's use that as a segue to move into the next section, which is about cultivating more stillness and energy balance, and looking at this concept of masculine and feminine integration in our
Mhm.
society. So what do you say if men kind of feel like, oh, yoga's too feminine, or I'm not really interested in that kind of energy work?
So I like to go back to the fact that we are whole human beings that have both masculine and feminine traits, qualities, hormones, energies, and the go, produce, put yourself out there. That is a more masculine energy. Women bring that to their work as well. And then the more rest, rejuvenate, nurture is part of a man's life as well as a woman's life. So if we are shutting off or ignoring one part of ourselves, we're really not recognizing our full humanity. And it is really important to incorporate rest, relaxation, rejuvenation. And if you can take the feminine and the masculine terminology away, use yin and
Right.
yang or up
Yeah.
and down, or, whatever, it helps you to see, oh yeah, like I need to rest. That's
Yeah.
really important. And you
Yeah.
pointed out earlier, I made a comment on someone's post today on LinkedIn that like, yeah, this whole rest and play thing needs to be part of every day, not just your vacation once or twice a year.
Yeah. Or
And
the
it
odd
really,
reward every once in a while. Yeah.
yeah, you can be more productive, mentally sharper, more creative when you allow
Yeah.
yourself the rest and relaxation.
I love that. So tell me more about how you believe this masculine and feminine energy, how it works in a more holistic way, and how that impacts us as leaders, as in our relationships and all aspects of our lives. Let's explore that even more.
Yeah, so a really big part of yogic living is working toward balance, and it is a constant up and down every day. I mean, depending upon how you wake up in the morning, and if the dog throws up, I mean,
Yeah.
we have these things that we're having to juggle all the time. And so this constant work to balance, if we're making sure to honor our feminine and our masculine energy, the performance and outward, and then the inward and more resting and nurturing, then we are creating a foundation of some balance to build the rest of our lives on. And if something's out of balance, it immediately is going to, you're going to have to compensate. So if you want this nice foundation to work from, to be grounded from and grounded in, then you want to honor that and bring that balance where you have some control.
Yeah. The other thing that is just coming to mind for me too, which we should probably mention, because like you said, the language of feminine and masculine can get a bit weird. We think of gender and all that stuff. And that's not what it is. It's energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Positive and negative polarities, if you will. But also, I think it's helpful to think of left hemisphere, right hemisphere of the brain. People can usually understand that. And we as men, we get so stuck. Women can too, obviously. But
Mm-hmm.
for men, for sure, we get so stuck in that left hemisphere, thinking, analyzing, critical thought, trying to figure things out. I'm going to think my way through this solution. Whereas that other stuff that you've been mentioning is more right brain. It's more spacious. It's more about relaxing and tapping into creativity. Like we can't be uber successful folks if we're not tapping into our creativity, if we're
Yeah.
just doing everything by rote and by what we know. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Love that. So let's explore stillness a little bit, because I know that stillness freaks people the F out, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It can.
what do you mean get still? What do you mean close my eyes? How can that actually enhance performance, work, and all aspects of life?
So it incorporates that idea of rest, and it's just like we have to sleep every night, or eventually if you go for a long period of time without sleeping, it's terrible for your health and you can eventually die. Like you have to have rest. So if you think of it that way, then allowing yourself to have these routines that just bring rest and nurturing and play into the picture, like just like anything else that's really important, if I don't know about you, but it goes on my calendar, because if it doesn't go on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen. So you need to, if you don't have a real steady routine, then put these new things you're trying to incorporate on the calendar with the alerts so that you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm going to try that 5-minute breathwork exercise to calm me down after a really busy day before I walk into my house and want to greet my family.
Yeah. And even practically speaking, introducing a new thing, and this is, Atomic Habits, all of those kind of teachings, it's like tack it onto something you do anyway, like your
Yes.
morning routine, right? Like that's a
Yes.
good way to start building these practices.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to say about stillness too is, um, you know, our brains are operating at high level beta waves. Like there's a lot going on in there when we're thinking, analyzing, doing, rushing home in the traffic or being in a traffic jam.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we get still, we can take that sort of frenetic brainwave pattern down and ultimately get into that alpha level. Ultimately, with some meditation, and then with practice, you can go even deeper. So it kind of, and this is what I like about stillness, you can tell it's just giving the brain a break.
Yeah.
Like all of that, it's just like,
Yes.
And you literally start to feel it after a while when you've started to get into these practices. So
Yeah. And
so
when
many
you
reasons.
have that little bit of stillness, that little calming, sometimes some big important things can come up for you. Like you can have a thought for something that's
Yeah,
new and
yeah,
creative because you've had the time for the brain to still itself.
yeah. And we're going to practice that in just a minute. Just a couple more topics I wouldn't mind covering with you before you lead us in a practicum. Um, so how have you seen men's lives change? And not just internally, but also externally when they begin to embody a more balanced approach to their energies, like this stuff that we're talking about. Like how do we move from being maybe drive to something where there is some more balance?
Yeah, I've seen it usually comes to me in comments that they'll make when they come back for a session. And it's, I like my communication with my partner and my family is like different. Like it's just calmer. They've noticed that I'm a little more chill, or I'm
Yes,
not as
yes,
irritable. I don't snap
yes.
as much. So there's that kind of thing. And then also stuff happens in your world and it just does not penetrate as deeply. It does not knock you off balance as much. You just have kind of some, I refer to it as you are strengthening your inner calm. Like you just are so strong internally that like you see this stuff happening and you're like, I can handle this.
Yeah,
Instead of emotionally reacting of, oh my God, what are we going to do to
right.
save that deal or,
Yeah.
prevent the crash or whatever.
And I like to think of it too as you get less stuck in the dramas and the traumas
Yes.
of life, right?
Yeah.
You're able to navigate them in this smooth way instead of
Yeah.
this way. I think that's what really helpful for me. And I was very angry for most of my life, angry, like seething,
Mhm.
angry, rage person. And over years, and it doesn't have to take years if you've got a systematic way of doing this, but over the years, I became less of that angry guy. So there's really beautiful concrete transitions that happen as
Yeah.
we start to balance out those energies, shall we say. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's move into a little exploration of what this can look like, and I'll let you frame it. You go ahead and tell us what you're going to do and lead us through it.
Yeah. So I always like to start with a little bit of breathing so that we can kind of bring our attention inward. And also, based on what we were talking about before, I like to mention that the breath, if you are agitated, angry, nervous, something you're about to do a big presentation, whatever the case may be, the quickest, easiest thing you can do is start controlling your breath. So I call it, I gave it a name, the 60-second stress slayer. It's a mouthful. But when you breathe in, count to 6. And when you breathe out, count to 8. So you're extending the exhale, which automatically tells your parasympathetic nervous system, like, I'm safe, I'm okay, I don't need to be in fight or flight. And you just keep doing that, and it will not completely make everything go away, but it just brings you back into a more controlled feeling emotionally. You can settle yourself and soothe yourself. So let's start by a little breathing. We're going to close our eyes because that also eliminates any visual stimulation. And we can place a hand on the low abdomen and on the chest if you like, or just leave the hands sitting on your lap. If the hands are on the belly and the chest, you can start to feel that rise and fall as you fill the lungs. And then as you exhale, emptying the lungs. And I really like here to just even the breath. So count to 6 on the inhale. And slowly count to 6 on the exhale. Or if you're feeling a little agitated, go ahead and count to 8 on the exhale. So just continue that smooth and steady breathing pattern. You might also just take notice of the muscles around the forehead and eyebrows. If they are holding any tension, just smooth the forehead. And as you continue to breathe, notice if the jaw is clenched, you might just part the teeth and the lips just slightly so you can feel a little release in the jaw. And allow the shoulders to relax a bit away from the ears. Continuing to breathe. If there's any other point in the body where you can feel some tension, just allow a little conscious release, softening of the muscles. Let's take one more full breath cycle here. And then we'll place the hands on the lap if they're not already there. Go ahead and gently open the eyes. And on an inhale, we're just going to lift our arms up into a wide V shape and maybe lift the chin and the chest. And then go ahead and make goalposts with the arms. So bring the arms, the elbows to 90 degrees. You can keep the chest and the chin lifted and feel your shoulder blades just pinch together a little closer. And then inhale the arms back up. And then exhale back into that goalpost shape. Lift the chin, lift the chest. This should feel nice across the front of the upper body. Inhale, arms back up. And exhale back into the goalposts. And we're just going to hold here for a moment, continuing the breath. Feeling the sensations in the upper back and in the chest. And then let's raise the arms on an inhale. And then we'll lower the arms down by our side slowly on that exhale. And then we're just going to take the left hand and put it on the left thigh. And then bring the right hand and just place it on the low back, right above the hip on that right side. And then just take a gentle little twist over toward the right. And we want to keep this slow and steady breath moving as we hold into this twist. Very gentle twist. It shouldn't be uncomfortable. This should feel good. If you feel any discomfort, just come back out. And then let's come back to the center. And then we're going to take this right hand, place it on the left leg. Left hand comes to rest right at the top of that left hip behind. And then we'll take a gentle twist toward the left. And we can just look over toward the left shoulder. We don't want to strain the neck. Just give a gentle stretch in the neck. And again, continue that smooth and steady breathing pattern. Noticing where you feel this around the torso and in the shoulders, in the neck. And then we'll come back to center. And let's take one more movement. Let's scoot your chair so that you can just fold forward over your thighs and just let your head hang down. And you'll get a little release in the low back here. You might even gently, slowly shake the head no. Get a little more release in the neck there. Feeling the blood flow change as we're in this gentle inversion with the head below the heart. And then bring the head to stillness if you're shaking the head no. And just slowly come up with a flat back. We want to push into our feet, engage the thighs, and then come up with a flat back. And then we'll just come back to our seated position. Should feel nice in the upper body. Should feel a little more open, a little more mobility, a little less tight. We spend so much time forward facing on the computer, the keyboards, driving, all that. So we just opened everything up a little bit.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And even for me, someone who practices this stuff, just spending that 5 or however many minutes that was doing that was really powerful, really powerful. Thank you.
It doesn't take a lot. Like we can do little, what I often hear them referred to as yoga snacks. Just little bits can really bring a lot of benefit.
Oh, I love that. Great. That's great. Wonderful. So thank you for that. I'm just going to share with folks as we wrap up here. We'll open it for questions in a second. But if you're interested in following up with either of us, I'm just going to share my connection first. There's an opportunity here for you to book a call with me, a midlife clarity call, where we address some of those broader issues that may be going on, and we can explore also how to bring some of this movement and breath work into your life. So lorencrawford.com. slash midlife clarity opt-in. And then for Kathy, I've got your website here, and I believe we wanted to add another link in there, which I'm just going to pull up. Give me a second. Sorry, I forgot to do that.
Yeah, this is a great place to go if you just want to find a little bit more about my approach and the different services that I offer. And then I am offering a summer 6-pack because everybody's schedules are a little busy. And I have people who are like, I can't commit to like 12 weeks. And I'm like, let's just do a summer 6-pack, not the abs, just a 6-pack of one-on-one support.
I'm just going to add that in here. Just give me a quick moment. There we go. So that's the link for the 6-pack program, which sounds amazing, by the way. Let's just see if there are any questions, comments for the next moment. We'll just open that up and see if we've got any questions, comments. And if we don't see anything, we'll just wrap things up. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom, your expertise in this area, Kathy. It's super great. And I know, as well as you know, that when we integrate and incorporate more of these sometimes softer aspects to our physical, our physical well-being, then it can really powerfully impact us on all levels, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So
yes.
Great discussion here today.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I couldn't agree with you more that mental, physical, emotional aspect they're just inextricably intertwined, even if we're not aware of it.
Yes, 100%. Well, I'm not seeing any questions or comments. We must have done a bang up job. So that's great. And hopefully we'll be able to connect with some of you in the future through these offerings. So thanks again, and we'll see you on my next live. And Kathy, we'll hopefully see you again soon as well.
Thanks, Loren. This was great. I'll talk to you soon and hope to follow up with many of you.
Great. Thank you.